Hello, this is Nancy. Well, I'd much rather be seeing you all in person today. I am very happy to be talking to you today about the IEC 63209-2 project. Before I dive in, I'd want to make sure I express my appreciation for the project team. We have about 70 people on the mailing list and typically about 10 to 20 in the meetings. If you'd like to join, please send me a note and I'll add you to the invite list. Here are the topics I'll be presenting today. The 63209 series provides a standardized method for evaluating longer-term reliability of PV modules and for different bills of materials. Part 1 is focused on extended module testing and includes the test sequences shown on the right. The question of how to address the long-term UV exposures was very difficult for the project team due to the time and associated cost of very long-term module testing. The team settled on the backside UV sequence in sequence 3. Note that a front-side UV sequence is not included, and sequence 3 is not expected to correlate to more than 10 years of durability in the field, as the team decided that testing for extended UV reliability is better addressed at the materials coupon level. The draft technical specification for Part 1 has recently been approved and should be published soon. Part 2 is now taking on the issue of how to test for extended UV reliability of polymeric materials. We're working on a CD with a broad agreement on the substance and a goal of having a draft to circulate to WG2 by April. A question I get asked is there a problem with PV polymeric components? Isn't this solved? To answer that, I'll show you a couple of slides from DuPont's Global Field Survey. We are seeing here from a 2020 analysis that there are still significant defects going on with backsheets and encapsulants. I'll focus on backsheets in this slide. While many backsheets have good reliability in the field, too many do not. The pictures at the bottom provide some examples of failure modes observed around the world. You see backside cracking in the outer layer, you see delamination, front side cracking, yellowing, delamination on the glass. Cracking on the front or the back side is a serious issue as the backsheet contains the electrical insulation for the module. If it's compromised, then there are safety issues. Two examples on the right provide a note of caution. We've seen a significant increase in inner layer cracking and outer layer cracking of some PVDF materials over the past year, and expect this is due to aging of relatively new backsheets and is likely to continue to increase in coming years. So there are a lot of IEC reliability standards for PV. How do we make sure they all fit together well? Here's my view of how the pieces fit together. I'm going to show you a number of different standards. Blue shows that they're published, and brown shows that they're in draft form. There's the basic module qualification standard, 61215, which has a new edition that I think is about to be published. 61730, the safety standard, which has a second edition in progress right now. There are polymeric component standards. All these three on the right, encapsulants, backsheets, and edge seals, focus on testing for the single component, so encapsulants or backsheets or edge seals. There's no multi-component testing in there. So this is meant to be something as a data sheet or for screening an individual encapsulant or a backsheet. So coming back to the module standards, we have known gaps. One of them was the degradation of relied upon insulation materials, as you saw from the pictures I showed before where the backsheets are really falling apart. And this is being addressed in the 6278-2-1, which is taking the testing in 6278-2 and putting requirements on that. This has an additional environmental stress testing beyond what's currently in 61730. And this new document will be required by the new 61730. Another issue is the extended reliability, which was the purpose behind the 63209-1. So that will be published soon, so that helps with that. But that has gaps as well, as we discussed earlier. The extended UV stress has no front side UV exposure, and the backside UV exposure really isn't sufficient to get to even medium term long-term reliability. Another issue is the use of a light source with low fidelity to the solar spectrum, as defined by MQT10. This can reduce the accuracy or the results. So we look at this and say we're missing something and there's an opportunity. We want to do better screening of the component materials so that we can extend the single component stress test and do a better job there. And so we want to include extended single component stress test in 63209-2. The qualification tests address one BOM for one model. For use of the same module design with different BOMs, guidance is given in the module retest guidelines. Note that all the testing is performed at the module level without any extended testing. If you use materials with different degradation rates, then different modules within the set are likely to look very different after some time in the field. Here's an example showing the variability between some different bills of materials. This shows a large array with 4 different backsheets. And we can tell that there are 4 different backsheets after a few years because there's 4 very different degradation patterns. One type of backsheet outer layer cracking, a second type of outer layer cracking, inner layer cracking, and then a 4th one that showed no defects. Here's another example of the importance of testing the complete packaging set of a bill of materials rather than just one individual component. I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of some results using the solder bump test Mike Kempe has been developing. He will be giving you more details in his presentation, so I'm going to give you the minimum here just to show the point. The solder bump coupon is a laminate structure and included an embedded wire to create a ridge and another trench from a wire placed on the top. We'll look at the impact of using an encapsulant with and without UV absorbers, exposing and also examining the coupon from the glass side. The test plan included 4 backsheets, including known good and known bad materials. Samples were exposed to UV and then thermal cycling, and then an additional and UV and thermal cycling steps. Here are the results. The green ones are signifying no damage, with higher numbers showing significant damage. The degradation matched the observations from the field and from DuPont mass testing. Moving on to the same set of materials using an encapsulant without UV absorbers, the motivation and hypothesis was that by removing the UV absorber, the UV dose on the backsheet would increase and degradation would occur more rapidly, allowing for a shorter test time. However, the results were very different. No degradation was seen. The new hypothesis is that the stabilization package likely included radical stabilizers, which provided a stabilizing effect. These experiments are being repeated with an additional encapsulant package to verify and extend the data set. So how does this information inform us as to what to include into the 63209-2? Historically, the 62788 component standards have historically addressed evaluation of a single component without specifying the BOM partners. So the BOM-specific coupon testing is a gap. This is changing. There's parallel development in the backsheet encapsulant standards that we are also using to bring into the 63209-2. Both test methods and stress exposures are being addressed. So that brings us to the second point here. We want to add BOM-specific tests and relevant stress procedures into the 63209-2 document. So now we'll move on to the development of the 63209-2 document. At the beginning, when we started asking what could be included, there was a lot. All polymeric materials, that includes front sheets, back sheets, encapsulants, edge seals, junction boxes, cables, connectors, all different module designs, and all relevant degradation modes. Clearly this is too much, so we needed to focus. So the philosophy that we've been using is to use testing that's already in the standard, so we're not developing new test methods. For stress exposures, we'll extend them or combine as necessary to get the desired effect. And then to break it down into manageable pieces, to not try to do everything at once and to learn as we go. So the scope of part 1, we're considering now breaking this into pieces so that there would be an IEC 63209-2-1. This would focus on crystalline silicon, polymeric components in the laminate, so no junction boxes or cables and connectors. Focusing on extended single component tests with encapsulants and backsheets, and also BOM-specific testing. What's shown here is the single component test in the 62788-2 and 62788-1 series. with the environmental stress exposures. This is what's in the referencing document. And here's what we've done for extending them in the 63209-2. You can see all the UV sequences have been extended. We'll say for the front side exposure, even 6,000 hours is nowhere near what's required to get to a 25-year lifetime dose. But we didn't think it was advisable to go to more than 6,000 hours. That's already a long time. But when you do go to 6,000 hours, include a 2,000 and 4,000 and 6,000 hour data points, then you can see a trend line and make some assessment as to whether things are changing. So that was the compromise we made there. Bomb-specific testing. Here's where we've got parallel development going on. So for backsheet cracking, what we're missing really are the backsheet and encapsulant interactions and really the effect of the module structure of having the cells and the wires. So what's included in this document is the solder bump coupons that we described earlier and the mini modules with sequential stress test. This is the same as in 63209-1, but with a tighter specification on the UV exposure. For delamination, adhesion tests, field tests are what everyone uses, but no one really likes. The comparison between either two different materials or between the same material before and after a stress exposure is just not good because of the polymeric behavior. If a polymer changes, then the adhesion value will change, whether it actually has changed adhesion or not. So it's a problematic test. But we have included an option of the single cantilever beam test, which is much improved in that regard. PID, this was a lot of discussion as well. The correlation of a mini module to a module performance is not defined and not expected to be good. But it still provides some useful information about how the cell and backsheet and encapsulant will interact to affect the PID performance. So this is included as a mini module test as referenced from 63209-1. The stress exposures are complicated and may stay that way, but there are multiple ones. So we have three different groups looking at different types of stress sequences. In the 63209-1 group, we have a damp heat and then 3 sets of UV, TC, HF10 with a final UV. For my Kempe and for the backsheet group is including just UV and TC times 3 cycles. And then in the encapsulant adhesion, Dave Miller in the encapsulant group is looking at damp heat, UV damp heat. So there's actually active research going on in all these 3 areas. And this may move around and change as we get more research and as the draft advances. So here's the summary of what would be the bomb-specific testing. And these are options. It's not necessarily that all would be done. So you've got things to look at: backsheet cracking on the front and the back, backsheet cracking and delamination, and adhesion tests and PID. As you shift over to glass-glass constructions, the testing is the same, except that there's no backsheet. So anything with a backsheet in it has been removed from the test plan. And so this is much simpler. So to summarize, 63209-2 provides complementary information to what you get from 63209-1. There are a number of different tests that are included as a menu with options to select from. There's no pass-fail requirements. And where part 1 is as I've described, part 2, we'll see where that goes depending on what we learn as we move forward with part 1 and who would like to be involved to focus on different components moving forward in the future. And with that, I thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you all in person next year.